nobody's ever done a book or a documentary on the impact of technology on live touring. The development of sound systems.
Yeah.
And people like Jim Marshall and that.
Yeah.
You know, how I mean, I remember Jack Bruce telling me that they Cream doing like outdoor stadiums in America with 2 piddly columns.
That's right. Yeah.
And half a Marshall stack. Yeah. And Ginger's fucking drums. One quick story just to finish, because this is so funny. Cream, I got this from Roger Forrester, who managed Cream for all their career, and Eric for many, many years. I said to him, what was the most, because obviously the guys in Cream had certain issues, some personal and certainly between each other.
Sure.
And I said, what was the worst gig you ever did with Cream? He said, do you remember when Wembley Arena was the Empire Pool and they had ice down? He said, they used to put sacks on the ice and then they used to put the chairs on the sacks.
Yeah.
Wow.
10,000 people sitting in sub-zero temperature. And Cream were playing. And at this point, Eric and Ginger were heroin addicts and Jack was an alcoholic. So and the gig is absolutely freezing cold. And halfway through the gig, Jack got fed up. He was still wearing a coat and woolly gloves. So he walked down the ramp, got in his car, and he went home. And I said to Roger, but he was the lead singer. He said, well, the other 2 were so out of it, they didn't realize he'd left. So they carried on for another hour.
That's amazing.
Carried on for another hour. And I said to him, but he was the singer. He said, Ed, you have no idea how out of it they were and how loud it was. Yeah. He said it was so loud that he'd gone home and they didn't realize.
I had a problem with volume. In 1980, I was touring with Jeff Beck in America, and I took with me an Ampeg SVT. I don't know if anybody knows that. Big amp, 10-inch speakers.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hear it because the stage volume, Simon's kit was amplified on stage, and Jeff had side fills that were blowing me to pieces. No matter where you stood, it was horrible. And I got a guy on the west coast to build a rig for me over a weekend, and it was 2 BGW 750s, so I got 1500 watts, 4 JBL 12s, 2 15s, and 2 Altex cinema horns. You know, the like big wedge thing.
Yeah.
And I could hear myself, but there was a stiff breeze if I went near it. My trousers are flat.
Well, of course, that's all changed because I interviewed Roger Daltrey at a music conference a couple of years ago, and I realized about halfway through that he was answering questions I hadn't asked, and I realized that I was sitting on his what he calls his Entwistle ear, because he's completely deaf in his right ear, because Entwistle was beyond, and we were talking about the fact that everything used to come off the back line.
Yeah.
And then of course now it comes out of usually flown speakers and all the rest of it. But the guys in the Who and many, many bands of that era, but particularly them, I mean, Pete's got terrible tinnitus, and
all the guys.
Roger could not hear what I was saying to him.
Really? Wow.
And he was sitting probably 4 feet away, 5 feet away.
But all the guitar players, Gary Moore, Jeff, Pete Townsend, they're all the Marshall owners have got tinnitus.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, Pete used to go along to Jim Marshall on almost a monthly basis and say, can you make it any louder? We'll just get louder and louder and louder. Yeah. They were the only band I've ever put on when I was at college or since, where when they finished, they did My Generation and they totaled the stage. Moon was still alive and everything was trashed. The drums came off the front of the stage. There were bombs going off, smoke. The noise was unbelievable. And it was the only gig I've ever put on where at the end, nobody applauded and nobody left.
Good God.
They were stunned. The audience were totally stunned.
Wow.
And I was standing right on the stage. I was about 4 feet from Townsend's double. While his Marshall stack, he had a couple of cabinets that didn't have speakers in, just so he could spear them, because they weren't gonna have to pay, replace speakers. But it was.
Are they in the Guinness Book of Records? Isn't the Who gig at Charlton?
Yes, Charlton football.
Charlton, yeah, and it's to date the loudest concert ever recorded.
Yeah.
Ben Newton was pretty loud, wasn't he?
I mean,
David.
When I went to see the Shadows at Leeds Grand Theatre in 1961, you had 2 Vox AC30s and a T60, I think, Brian.
Probably.
Yeah, that seemed staggeringly loud, of course, because we didn't have anything to compare it with.
Right. It was loud in those days for that period of time.
I don't think your drums were mic'd. Your drums weren't mic'd, were they?
You mentioned the word tinnitus just now, and directly someone mentions it, I hear it because I've got it continually, simply because I wear headphones and I've got the fucking wood.
Actually, that's what Pete says. Pete Townsend says it's not playing live that fucked his hearing; it was headphones.
Yeah.
I used to see the Shadows before all the Beatles and their Beatlemania.
Yeah.
I used to get annoyed when the girls squealed at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a strange sound. It just
I used to get annoyed at Bruce Welch's patter. I mean, I don't know who wrote that for him, but
This is the funniest thing was the sound checks. Bruce Welch used to get to the sound check, at 4:00 whilst the crew was setting up, and they'd tell him to fuck off because it's our fucking stage. You're on at 6.
yes,
You're on there. Fuck off. So he used to get a tape measure, and he used to make sure that the 3 Voxes were in a perfect line, straight in the.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was really compulsive behaviour, obsessive compulsive.
I heard about his tuning problem.
Tuning problem used to drive everybody nuts. I couldn't even get my practice. If I practiced, which I did every day before a show, I'd have to go 2 or 3 dressing rooms away because he'd be sort of sitting there going, dong. I said, the time you've had your first sprung on stage, it's out of tune anyway.
Can I tell you the story I heard? You can confirm this. Alan Jones used to help by tuning, didn't he?
Yes.
By using a tuner, the strobe kind, which you had to program it with a piano or something.
That's right, yeah.
And if you knocked it, it became meaningless. Well, and they had about 4 of them in series. And Bruce comes in one day, plugs in, it had been knocked, so it didn't mean anything. And he has a tantrum, and he yelled, this is Palladium or somewhere, and he yelled, for Christ's sake, all the guitars are horribly out of tune, and we're on in an hour.
Yeah. He'd go into EMI, Bruce, with that little tiny black box with a woo, with the A, whatever it is, and he'd go to the strings. This is an A, woo.
When Mark and I came to that Dominion gig, Brian, I think you might remember this. We go in the dressing room. We haven't met the Shads before, so we're like, really, this is the dog's bollocks. This is, and Hank had very kindly brought along the red Strat that Clifford bought in New York in '58.
Yes.
Along with that, didn't bring the cream Telecaster, but just for us to see. So I remember Hank opened the lid of the case, and Knopfler and I are stroking this piece of inanimate wood, hoping that maybe we could get some kind of inspiration from this lump of wood.
I'm afraid that's it.
That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
And I was looking around the room, and I remember saying to Brian, I said, "Where's Bruce?" And he said, "Oh, he's locked himself in the toilet." I said, "Why?" He said, "He's sulking." I said, "Why? What do you mean?" I said, "You're on in half an hour, aren't you?" He said, "Oh." And I said, "Well, why is he in the toilet?" He said, "He can't get his stage trousers done up." So not for an eye like, oh, come on, these. And finally, Bruce came out, and he couldn't get the zip done up. So I went into manager mode, And I went out to the stage doorman and I said, "Have you got any string?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Give me a ball of string and a pair of scissors." And I've never met Bruce Welch before. So 5 minutes later, I'm girding him up with string. And I said, "Right, now take a deep breath and you can get your zip up. Right? Good. Now put your guitar in front of you where it usually is and nobody will know. You'll be fine and your trousers won't fall down." And that was how Bruce and I bonded. A bit of string and
One way of putting it.
Is this conversation going to require a lawyer afterwards at all? Is it?
well, I don't know what happens. We've been going for nearly 3 hours and we should get
Yeah, John's going to run out of disk space, aren't you?
go and do something.
Well, this will be our first ever 35 episode Rock Tale.
Yeah, no, this is your box set, mate. This is
Yeah, of course.
This is your box. Yeah, $9.99 all night.
No, thank you, guys. It's fantastic.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Brilliant.
Well, I'm so glad you've enjoyed it. Do come again anytime. Just you've got the email address. Just say I fancy having a chinwag with some old mates.
Yeah,
and we'll do it.
If you want to email me and get Noddy on board, I'll get Nod.
That would be fantastic, Ed. Thank you very much. Brilliant.
Well, have a lovely weekend, everybody.
And you, and be safe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mo, for bringing your friends into our home.
Thanks for inviting us, Mo.
It's an honour. Seriously.
Now, you can go away and learn diamonds now.
I'll wish you all good night. And
Thank you, Brian.
Lots of love, Brian. You take care.
Thanks, Brian.
We'll speak, mate.
And the checks to the post.
Yeah, I'm going to go and send Clem a set of A4s. Thanks for having us on, John. Thank you.
No problem at
Thanks a
all.
lot.
Thank you.
David, thank you. Take care.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, bye for now. Wee.
I'm exhausted.
There we go. Wee. Come on, leave meeting.
Okay.
Fuck. There we go.
There you go. Good night, boys. See you.
Cheers, Mo. Thank you very much.